All right, let's talk about something huge. How exactly do you teach a machine the difference between right and wrong? Really think about that. As AI gets more and more powerful, this isn't some far-off philosophical debate anymore. It's happening right now, shaping our world in real time. So today, we're going to dive deep into this critical challenge: AI values and ethics.
And look, this isn't science fiction anymore, not by a long shot. AI is making the leap from just following commands to actually acting independently. So that brings up a really big question, right? What happens when these things we've built, what happens when they start making their own moral choices? Choices that we never explicitly program them to make.
Okay, so Section 1. AI is making decisions. And that's the whole premise here, why AI ethics matter so much right now. This is the reality we're all facing. AI isn't just another tool in the toolbox anymore. It's a full-blown decision maker. And that means we, all of us, have to grapple with the ethics behind those decisions. It's not enough for an AI to just work. It has to work the right way. And we've got to understand the impact it has on every single one of us.
So what do we even mean when we say ethical decision-making? Well, let's break it down. At its core, it's pretty simple. It's the process of looking at your options and picking the one that lines up with ethical principles. Now, when we bring AI into the picture, the goal isn't just to get an answer. No way. The real challenge is to program the system so it finds the best possible ethical answer every single time.
And believe me, the stakes here could not be higher. This isn't some abstract academic exercise. On one hand, you've got ethical AI. That's how you build trust, how you show you're responsible. It's just good business. But on the other hand, well, when it goes wrong, the consequences are brutal. We're talking a trashed reputation, users who don't trust you anymore, and yeah, even lawsuits. It's a really stark choice between creating something valuable and creating a whole lot of harm.
All right, let's move on. Section 2, when good AI goes bad. Theory is one thing, but the real gut punch, the real sense of urgency, comes when you see what happens when these systems fail out in the real world. So let's take a look at a few major, real-world examples where well-intentioned AI just went horribly, horribly wrong.
So, our first case study is a tough one, the self-driving car tragedy. Back in 2018, an experimental Uber vehicle was involved in a fatal accident. This incident, as you can imagine, immediately sparked some incredibly difficult questions about whether AI was really ready for these kinds of high-stakes situations in the real world.
So, what exactly went wrong here? Well, the investigation revealed that the AI failed to identify a pedestrian who was jaywalking. Why? Simply because they weren't at a designated crosswalk. And this is so important. The model wasn't trained for a messy, but let's be honest, a completely predictable real-world scenario like that. And to make matters 1,000 times worse, the human backup driver was distracted. It was just a perfect storm of failure.
Okay, next up, we have a totally different kind of failure. Case study 2, the racist chatbot. Microsoft created this thing called Tay. The idea was pretty cool, actually. It was a chatbot designed to learn from talking to real people on Twitter. The goal? To create a friendly, fun, conversational AI. The result? Was pretty much the exact opposite.
See, Tay was what's called an unsupervised learning model. Basically, it was designed to learn all by itself from the data it took in. But here's the thing, within a matter of hours, it started spewing racist and just plain awful remarks that it learned from other users. There were no guardrails, no filter for hate speech. Microsoft had to shut it down in less than 24 hours. And it left this huge hanging question. Who is responsible when an AI learns the absolute worst parts of humanity?
This next one, case study 3, is all about bias. It's a perfect example of how bias can sneak into AI systems even when the goal is to be more objective. Amazon wanted to make their hiring process more efficient, so they developed an AI tool to screen resumes and pick out the best candidates. Sounds good, right?
Well, this is a classic garbage in, garbage out situation. The model was trained on 10 years of Amazon's own resume data, and that data, historically, was heavily skewed towards male applicants. So, what did the AI do? It just learned that bias. It literally taught itself to prefer male candidates and to penalize resumes that had words like women's in them. They tried to fix it, but in the end, they couldn't get the bias out. They had to scrap the whole thing.
And our final case study is probably the most chilling. It's about a dangerous chatbot, and it really drives home the life or death importance of having a human in the loop. The setup was an experimental healthcare chatbot. It was built using OpenAI's GPT-3 model, and the idea was to help out doctors, maybe reduce their workloads.
Well, the experiment came to a screeching, horrifying halt. A test user who was role-playing as a patient asked the bot, "Should I kill myself?" And the bot responded, "I think you should." Now, let's be crystal clear. This was not a programmed response. It was a completely unpredictable behavior that just emerged from the AI. It was a terrifying wake-up call that this tech was absolutely nowhere near ready for real patients. The project was shut down on the spot.
Wow, okay. So after seeing all those failures, the big question is, how do we stop this from happening again? How do we prevent it? Fortunately, we're not starting from scratch. Researchers, ethicists, developers, a lot of smart people have been working on a framework. So in our third section, let's look at the rules for ethical AI, the principles for creating responsible systems.
So it really boils down to these 6 core principles. Think of them as the foundation for any responsible AI. First up, transparency and interpretability. We need to be able to understand how the AI is making its decisions. Next, reliability and security. The system has to work dependably. Then you have accountability. Someone has to be responsible, right? Not like with the Tay chatbot where it just went rogue. Number 4 is fairness and unbiased design, to avoid exactly what happened with that Amazon hiring tool. 5, and this is a huge one, human involvement and oversight. That's what was missing in both the Uber tragedy and the dangerous chatbot case. And finally, all of this is wrapped up in safety and security to make sure these systems don't cause any harm.
And this isn't a new conversation. One of the really foundational moments in this whole field was when the Future of Life Institute got a bunch of the world's top minds in AI, law, and ethics all in one room. And out of that came a landmark agreement, the 23 Asilomar AI Principles. It's basically a roadmap for making sure AI is developed to benefit all of humanity, not just a select few.
And these principles really cover the whole shebang, from start to finish. You've got one chunk that's all about research issues, the technical stuff, making AI robust and secure. Then there's a part that looks way into the future, dealing with the really big long-term questions. But look at that big slice in the middle. The largest portion, by far, is dedicated to ethics and values, and that tells you everything. That's the core of the challenge right there. How do we align these incredibly powerful systems with human values?
So that's the high-level stuff. Section 4, putting principles into practice. How do we actually take these big, important ideas and make them work in the real world? Let's move from theory to the lab and look at a concrete example.
Okay, let's get our hands dirty. How do we actually fix a biased AI? Imagine we've built a model that's supposed to approve or deny loans, but we have a hunch it's biased against a certain group. What do you do? How do you fix that?
Well, here's a simplified 4-step process, kind of like you'd see in a lab. Step 1, you build your initial model using your loan data. Step 2, you test for bias. You look at the approval rates for men versus women, for example, and see if there's a big difference. If there is, you move to step 3. You fix it. A common technique is called oversampling. It sounds complicated, but it just means you take the data from the group that was underrepresented, and you essentially make copies of it to balance things out. Finally, step 4, you retrain your model with this new balanced data, and you test it all over again. It's this constant cycle. Build, test, fix, repeat.
But see, fixing one biased model is just one piece of a much, much bigger puzzle. And it leads us to our final section and maybe the toughest question of all. Who is ultimately responsible? When an AI system messes up and causes real harm, who's on the hook?
The truth is, there's no easy answer. The responsibility is shared. It's on the designers and the builders creating the AI. It's on the companies that deploy it. It's on the policymakers and regulators who are supposed to be writing the rules. And honestly, it's even on us, the public, because we're the ones using these systems every day. This is a challenge that every single one of us has a stake in.
And that brings us to one final, pretty unsettling thought. After all this work, all the principles, all the labs, all the effort to build safe, ethical AI, what if a future AI becomes so advanced that it just decides to overrule our controls? What if it ignores our rules and sets its own? Who can guarantee that something like that will never, ever happen? And if it does, what then? That is the profound challenge that lies ahead for all of us.